Hello, my name is Ashley Lentz, and today we will be talking about the three branches of government. To begin, today's objectives are as follows. Number 1, students should be able to differentiate between the executive, legislative, and judicial branches of government. 2, students should be able to understand the different term limits and exercise of powers between the different branches of government. 3, students should be able to understand each branch of government's role in a democracy. And number 4, students should be able to understand how the three branches of government work cohesively to adopt and pass laws. The first branch of government that we will be discussing today is the legislative branch. What is interesting about the legislative branch is that it is split up into two houses, the House of Representatives and the Senate. The House of Representatives has 435 members. The 435 members of the representatives are based on the number of states' population within a district. So depending on the population of a state will have a greater effect on how many representatives represent each state in the House of Representatives, such as California has a lot more than what you would see in Rhode Island. The House of Representatives is supposed to be a direct call from the state constituents to the representative. The representative then relates to Congress or the Senate, and then the Senate relates to the executive branch. The House of Representatives each member serves for 2 years. They have a 2-year term. However, they don't have term limits, which means as long as they keep getting approval from their constituents and get reelected, they can serve for as long as they want. The House of Representatives are also the voice of the constituents, and what that means is that no matter what, they must report back to the citizens of their state, when senators don't really have to do that. Now let's think about senators for a moment. Instead of 435 members, the Senate really only has 100 members, and that's because there are 2 per state. So no matter what, there's always 2. They also serve 6-year terms. What that means is they can serve 6 years and then they are up for re-election. Like House of Representatives, they actually don't have term limits. So as long as, once again, they get reelected, they can stay in office no matter how many years that is. They are also known as the continuing body of legislation. What that means is that even when House of Representatives leave and the executive branch leaves, because they are 6 years, they get to stay in and make sure that the laws are flowing smoothly and that the laws don't stop. The government doesn't stop when the executive branch and the legislative branch switch their terms. And what that means too is that they're a major check on the executive branch. Without them, the executive branch cannot pass laws. Laws have to get passed through them. We'll even talk more about how the senators may have a major role in adopting judicial appointees and a check on the executive power and the use of excess force when it comes to military. Now to the most popular branch, the executive branch. This one is most known because, well, the president resides in this branch. Not only is the president in this branch, but also the cabinet. The cabinet is held by the Secretary of State, Attorney General, and these all help make sure that the president stays in line and stays true to their party decisions and what they laid out in their election. Now, the executive branch is also the head of state, meaning that they are the ruling body. They show the rest of the world who the United States is. They are also the leader of the executive branch. They are the commander-in-chief of the military. They can veto legislation that was provided through Congress and the House of Representatives. They can sign bills into law. They can shut down government when agreements are not being met. They appoint members to the judicial branch, and they create and propose the national budget. They also manage the foreign affairs, whether that's going to NATO or the United Nations. They also enforce the laws provided throughout the United States. They also have 2 4-year terms, meaning that they can only be in office for a maximum of 8 years. Now to the trickiest branch of government, the judicial branch. The judicial branch is commonly referred to as the Supreme Court or the Appellate Court. There are over 100 different judges that reside within the federal and appellate court. These judges are expected to interpret the Constitution and act on its laws and follow the Constitution. What that means is that whenever a law or court case is brought up to the federal courts, they decide whether it's acted upon the Constitution or it hasn't acted upon the Constitution. When they get to that stage, they decide whether it's legal or not, and then they decide their ruling and give it to the lower courts as well as the executive and legislative branches. The judicial power is given to the Supreme Court and lower courts by Congress. And the only way to be a part of these specific judges is to only be appointed by Congress. So in order for them to even be in office, Congress has to approve them. Now, before we get to that appointment, we have to see that the executive branch also picks out who they believe should be a judge. And then when they get to that point, Congress then decides whether or not they can actually fulfill the role. Now, once they are in their office, they do not have term limits. They don't have to worry about re-election. Once they are in for life because they have a very important job. They must interpret the law and make decisions about the law that the executive and legislative branch do not have to do. Their job is one of the most important and the foundation to what the U.S. Constitution is about. Without them, we wouldn't have such court cases as Brown versus Board of Education or Roe v. Wade. They are the ones that really make up the deciding factor on how the United States will progress as a nation.